Beneath Australia's sunlit shores lie islands with shadows that never fade. From prison outposts and leper colonies to battlefields and shipwreck sites, each one hides stories of suffering, mystery, and restless spirits. These are not just places on a map, they are echoes of the past, where whispers ride the wind and the dead refuse to be forgotten. Journey with us to the most haunted islands in Australia, if you dare step ashore. Don't just watch the hauntings, be part of them. Subscribe my channel for more spine-tingling stories. 1. Cockatoo Island, New South Wales. Cockatoo Island, located in the heart of Sydney Harbour, is one of Australia's most famous and most haunted places. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site today, but its past is filled with dark and disturbing history. In the early 1800s, the island was used as a convict prison. Britain sent its worst criminals to Australia, and many of them ended up here. The prisoners lived in terrible conditions, with little food, hard labor, and cruel punishments. Some were chained for days, while others were kept in small, damp cells where sunlight could not reach. Disease was common, and many inmates died on the island. Later, Cockatoo Island became a girls' reformatory. Orphaned, troubled, or homeless young girls were sent here in the late 1800s. The intention was to educate and reform them, but the reality was harsh. The girls were treated almost like prisoners, forced to work long hours in laundry rooms or kitchens. Many tried to escape by swimming across the harbor, but the strong tides made it nearly impossible. It is said that some who tried never made it to shore. Their tragic stories have become part of the island's ghostly reputation. In the 20th century, Cockatoo Island turned into one of Australia's largest shipyards. During both World Wars, the island was busy with workers building and repairing naval ships. Accidents were common, with workers injured or killed on the job. The shipyard operated for decades before finally closing in the 1990s. By then, the island's layers of history, convict suffering, the sad fate of young girls, and the deaths of workers, had left a deep mark on its atmosphere. Today, visitors and ghost hunters believe these spirits have never left. Many report hearing footsteps echoing in empty prison cells or voices whispering in the dark. Some claim to see shadowy figures moving across the old courtyard at night. Others have felt sudden cold spots, as if someone invisible brushed past them. Even during the day, some areas feel heavy and unsettling, especially the underground tunnels once used by prisoners and workers. Cockatoo Island is now open to the public. People can camp overnight, take guided tours, or join special ghost tours that explore its haunted past. Standing on the island at night, surrounded by the black waters of Sydney Harbour, it is easy to imagine the fear and pain of those who lived and died here. Every stone wall and rusty gate seems to hold a memory. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, there is no denying that Cockatoo Island's history is real, and it continues to draw those curious about the darker side of Australia's past. 2. Norfolk Island. Norfolk Island, a small island in the Pacific Ocean, may look like a peaceful paradise today, but its history is filled with suffering, fear, and tragedy. It was first settled by Polynesians hundreds of years ago, but Europeans arrived in the late 1700s when Britain claimed the island. Soon after, Norfolk Island became one of the harshest penal colonies in the world. Convicts from Australia who had reoffended or were considered too dangerous were sent here as punishment. The journey to the island was long and difficult, and once they arrived, the prisoners faced brutal conditions. Guards were strict and cruel, and punishments were severe, including whippings, hard labor, and long periods of isolation. The island's isolation in the middle of the ocean made escape almost impossible. The thick surrounding waters, high cliffs, and dangerous currents meant that anyone trying to flee would likely drown before reaching safety. The convicts worked in chains, building roads, structures, and farms for the settlement. Food was often scarce, disease spread quickly, and medical care was poor. Many prisoners died from illness, exhaustion, or mistreatment. The small cemetery on the island became their final resting place, and even today, it holds the graves of both convicts and soldiers from that time. Norfolk Island also has a history of shipwrecks. The dangerous reefs and unpredictable weather around the island have claimed many ships over the centuries. These wrecks added to the island's reputation for tragedy. Some stories tell of sailors who drowned just meters from shore, their cries heard by those on land. Over time, locals began to share tales of strange lights on the water and ghostly figures appearing near the cliffs on stormy nights. After the penal colony was closed in the mid-1800s, the island was given to descendants of the bounty mutineers from Pitcairn Island. They brought their own traditions and way of life, but the dark memories of the convict era never fully faded. Visitors today can still walk through the ruins of the old prison buildings in Kingston, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and feel the eerie atmosphere. The thick stone walls, rusted iron bars, and narrow cells seem to whisper stories of the past. Many people who visit Norfolk Island report ghostly experiences. Some have heard heavy footsteps in empty prison halls, while others have felt sudden chills in warm weather. There are accounts of strange shadows moving through the ruins at night and voices calling out when no one is there. The island's quiet beauty during the day changes to an unsettling silence after dark, and it is easy to imagine the spirits of those who suffered here still wandering among the old buildings. Norfolk Island is a place where paradise and horror live side by side, making it one of the most haunting locations in Australia's history. 3 Beacon Island, Batavia's Graveyard, Western Australia. Beacon Island, often called Batavia's Graveyard, is one of the most haunted and tragic places in Australia's history. It is part of the Houtman-Abrolhos Islands, located off the coast of Western Australia. The island's dark story began in 1629, when the Dutch ship Batavia was sailing from the Netherlands to Indonesia. The ship struck a reef near the island and broke apart. At first, more than 300 survivors managed to reach the nearby islands, including Beacon Island. However, what followed was far worse than the shipwreck itself. The commander of the ship left in a small boat with a few men to seek help, leaving the rest of the survivors behind. In his absence, chaos and horror took over. A man named Geronimus Cornelis, one of the ship's officers, took control and began a reign of terror. He and his followers murdered around 125 men, women, and children on Beacon Island. Many victims were stabbed, drowned, or left without food and water. The killings were brutal and often senseless. Cornelis planned to take control of any rescue ship that might arrive and turn pirate, but his plan failed when the commander returned with help. Cornelis and his men were captured, and several were executed for their crimes. The events on Beacon Island shocked the world and became one of the bloodiest shipwreck stories in history. Over the centuries, the island's sandy soil has revealed human remains, many showing signs of violent death. Archaeologists have uncovered mass graves and personal items belonging to the victims, such as buttons, tools, and pieces of clothing. These discoveries confirm the terrible events that happened there almost 400 years ago. Today, Beacon Island is uninhabited, but its reputation as Batavia's Graveyard continues to draw attention. Fishermen and divers who visit the area report strange feelings and unexplained events. Some say they have seen ghostly figures walking along the shore at night or heard faint cries carried by the wind. Others have spoken of sudden drops in temperature and an overwhelming sense of sadness while on the island. Because of its historical importance, the island is now protected, and visits are limited. Researchers and archaeologists continue to study the site to learn more about the Batavia tragedy. Even so, Beacon Island remains a place of mystery and sorrow. It is not just a reminder of a shipwreck but of human cruelty, survival, and the thin line between order and chaos. Standing on its shore, with the waves crashing against the reef, it is easy to imagine the fear and desperation of those trapped here so long ago. The spirits of the victims seem to linger, making Beacon Island one of the most haunted and haunting places in Australia's history. 4 Phantom Island, Queensland. Phantom Island, located off the coast of Queensland, is a small tropical island with a very dark and sad history. While it looks beautiful from a distance, with palm trees, sandy beaches, and clear blue water, the island was once a place of isolation, fear, and loss. In the early 20th century, the Queensland government used Phantom Island as a medical isolation site. People suffering from leprosy, also known as Hansen's disease, were taken there and forced to live far away from their families and the mainland. At that time, there was no proper cure for leprosy, and society feared it greatly. In 1939, a special leprosarium was built on the island. Most of the patients were Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, many of whom were taken against their will. They were not allowed to leave, and visits from family members were very rare. The separation caused deep sadness and emotional pain for those who were sent there. Life on the island was very hard. The patients lived in basic huts, food supplies were limited, and medical care was minimal. Even though the disease itself was already a heavy burden, the loneliness and feeling of being forgotten made it worse. Many people died on Phantom Island, and their graves can still be found there today. The isolation hospital continued operating for decades. In addition to the leprosarium, there was also a lock hospital for people with other infectious diseases, such as sexually transmitted infections, especially during the 1920s and 1930s. These patients were also kept away from the rest of the population, often without proper consent. The combination of medical neglect, cultural disconnection, and harsh living conditions left lasting scars on the survivors and their families. By the 1970s, medical treatment for leprosy had improved, and the need for such isolation faded. The leprosarium closed in 1973, and the island was abandoned. Today, the ruins of old buildings, rusting water tanks, and broken fences remain, slowly being overtaken by nature. The cemetery, with its simple wooden and metal crosses, stands as a quiet reminder of those who died far from home. 5. Sarah Island, Tasmania. Sarah Island, located in the remote and wild waters of Macquarie Harbour on the west coast of Tasmania, is one of the most infamous places from Australia's convict history. It was established in 1822 as a penal settlement for the worst prisoners in the British colony. The location was chosen because it was almost impossible to escape. The harbour was surrounded by dense, dangerous rainforest, and the cold, rough seas made travel by boat extremely risky. Any convict who tried to run away would face starvation, drowning, or getting lost in the wilderness. Life on Sarah Island was extremely harsh. The prisoners were forced to work long hours in brutal conditions, cutting down Huon pine trees and processing the timber for shipbuilding. Huon pine was highly valued for its durability and resistance to rot, and the British wanted as much of it as they could get. Prisoners had to carry heavy logs, saw timber, and work in freezing, wet weather. Food was often scarce and of poor quality, leading to malnutrition. Punishments for disobedience were severe, flogging with a cat-o'-nine-tails was common, and solitary confinement in small, dark cells added to the misery. The commandants who ran the island were strict and often cruel. Rules were enforced with violence, and the prisoners lived in constant fear. The isolation of the island also meant that news from the outside world rarely reached them, making them feel completely cut off from life beyond the prison. This hopelessness led to many desperate escape attempts, some of which became legendary. In one famous case, a group of convicts managed to steal a ship they had built and sailed it all the way to Chile, successfully escaping the colony's control. In another, more tragic case, a group of men who fled into the wilderness turned to cannibalism to survive. The penal settlement on Sarah Island was eventually closed in 1833 when the new prison at Port Arthur opened. By then, the island had gained a reputation for cruelty and suffering. Many prisoners had died there, either from disease, injuries, or the dangerous conditions. Today, Sarah Island is a popular tourist site, but it still carries an eerie atmosphere. The ruins of old buildings, crumbling walls, and remnants of the soppits remain as silent witnesses to the suffering that once took place there. Tour guides share chilling stories of punishments, daring escapes, and ghostly sightings. Some visitors claim to have felt sudden cold spots, heard footsteps when no one was there, or sensed an unsettling presence among the ruins. While the island's scenery is breathtaking, with its rugged coastline and surrounding mountains, the history of Sarah Island is a stark reminder of the cruelty of Australia's convict era. It is both a place of natural beauty and a memorial to the pain endured by those who were sent there. Many visitors believe the island is haunted by the spirits of the people who suffered there. Some report hearing whispers in the wind, feeling sudden chills in the humid air, or seeing shadowy figures among the trees. Locals say the island carries a heavy energy, as if the pain of its past still lingers. Phantom Island is now a protected site, and access is restricted to preserve its history and respect those who lived and died there. It is a place where beauty hides a tragic story, and where the silence speaks louder than words. 6. Peel Island, Queensland. Peel Island is a small island in Moreton Bay, off the coast of Queensland, Australia. Today it is known for its quiet beaches, clear waters, and protected wildlife, but its past is filled with sadness and mystery. The island has been used for several purposes over the years, each adding to its reputation as one of the most haunted places in the region. In the 19th century, Peel Island was first used as a quarantine station for newly arrived ships. Immigrants suspected of carrying contagious diseases were kept here, far away from the mainland. This isolation was meant to protect the population, but for those sent to the island, it meant weeks or months of loneliness and fear. Many people who arrived sick never left the island alive, and some were buried in unmarked graves. Later, in the early 20th century, Peel Island became home to a leper colony. People suffering from Hansen's disease, leprosy, were taken here, often against their will, and separated from their families for the rest of their lives. At the time, there was no real cure, and the disease carried a strong social stigma. Patients lived in simple huts, and medical staff visited from the mainland, but life was hard and deeply lonely. The sense of being cut off from the world created an atmosphere of sadness that still lingers in stories told about the island. Over the decades, visitors and historians have shared eerie accounts from Peel Island. Some claim to have heard voices in the wind or footsteps on empty paths. Others have reported seeing ghostly figures along the shoreline or near the ruins of the old hospital buildings. These sightings are often linked to the spirits of patients who lived and died there, never able to return to their homes. The fact that many graves remain unmarked only adds to the feeling that the past has not been fully laid to rest. Peel Island is now part of the Tirkuru National Park and is protected for its historical and environmental value. Access is limited, and most visitors arrive by boat for day trips. The island's old leper colony buildings still stand, though they are slowly being taken over by nature. Walking among them can feel like stepping back in time, and the silence can be unsettling, especially for those who know the history. Today, Peel Island is a place of both beauty and sorrow. The beaches and mangroves are home to birds, turtles, and dugongs, while the ruins tell a story of human suffering and resilience. It is a reminder of how isolation was once used to control disease and of the lives that were forever changed by it. For many, the island holds an unshakable sense of loss, making it one of the most haunting places in Queensland. 7. North Stradbroke Island, Queensland. North Stradbroke Island, known as Minjerayba to the Quandamooka people, is one of the largest sand islands in the world. Located off the coast of Brisbane in Queensland, it is famous for its stunning beaches, freshwater lakes, and rich Aboriginal heritage. But alongside its natural beauty, the island also has a history filled with tragedy, shipwrecks, and ghost stories that have made it a place of mystery for many visitors. For thousands of years, the Quandamooka people lived on the island, relying on the sea and land for food and cultural traditions. Many of their sacred sites still remain, and their stories include spiritual warnings about certain places. Some Aboriginal elders speak of spirits that guard the land, and these legends continue to be respected by locals. European contact with the island began in the early 19th century. Over the years, it became the site of several shipwrecks as vessels tried to navigate the dangerous waters around Moreton Bay. The most famous is the wreck of the Sovereign in 1847, in which many passengers drowned. Survivors told of cries for help echoing through the night long after the tragedy, and some believe those cries can still be heard on stormy evenings. North Stradbroke Island was also home to a leper colony in the early 20th century, located near Dunwich. People with Hansen's disease were brought here and kept away from the mainland, much like those sent to Peel Island. Life for these patients was extremely hard, with limited medical care and deep social isolation. Many died on the island and were buried in nearby cemeteries, some in unmarked graves. These burial sites are often linked to ghost sightings and unexplained happenings. Over the years, visitors and residents have shared eerie experiences. Some claim to see shadowy figures walking along the beaches at night or hear voices in the wind near old settlement areas. Fishermen have reported feeling watched while alone on the shore, and campers speak of sudden drops in temperature even on warm nights. The mix of ancient spiritual beliefs, shipwreck tragedies, and the leper colony's sorrow seems to have left a lingering energy. Today, North Stradbroke Island is a popular holiday destination with resorts, whale-watching tours, and cultural experiences led by the Quandamooka people. Many visitors come for its beauty, but those who know its past often feel a deeper connection to the land. The cemeteries, ruins, and shipwreck sites serve as reminders of the lives lost and the hardships faced here. While the island is full of life and activity now, its history continues to echo through its landscapes. From the sacred Aboriginal sites to the haunting memories of shipwreck victims and isolated patients, North Stradbroke Island carries stories that will never be forgotten, making it both a paradise and one of Queensland's most haunting locations. 8. Bruny Island, Tasmania. Bruny Island is a peaceful and scenic island off the southeast coast of Tasmania, known for its wild coastline, tall cliffs, rich wildlife, and fresh local produce. It is made up of two main land masses, North Bruny and South Bruny, connected by a thin stretch of land called the Neck. Today, it is a popular place for tourists, but its history also holds many dark and mysterious stories that have given it a reputation as a haunted location. For thousands of years, the Noonan people, an Aboriginal group, lived on Bruny Island. They fished, hunted, and gathered food, and they had a deep spiritual connection with the land. Many sacred sites remain here, and Aboriginal elders tell stories of spirits that protect certain areas. These stories have been passed down for generations, warning people to respect the land and its history. When Europeans arrived in the early 1800s, life for the Noonan people changed forever. Disease, violence, and forced removal took a heavy toll on the local population. One of the most famous Aboriginal figures from Bruny Island was Truganini, often called the last full-blooded Tasmanian Aboriginal woman. Her life was marked by tragedy, and some believe her spirit still watches over the island. Visitors have reported feeling sudden chills or sensing a presence while exploring areas connected to her story. Bruny Island also has a history of shipwrecks. Its rocky coastline and dangerous waters have claimed many vessels over the years, especially before modern navigation tools were available. One of the most well-known wrecks was the Natal Queen in 1909, where survivors told of strange lights on the shore and eerie voices at night. Some sailors believed the island was cursed, and even today, locals talk about ghostly lights appearing out at sea during storms. The island's isolation also made it a place of hardship for early settlers. There are old homesteads and farm ruins scattered across the landscape, many abandoned for over a century. Some visitors say they have heard footsteps inside empty buildings, doors slamming without wind, and whispers in the quiet of the night. These old structures, surrounded by wild bushland, give a feeling of stepping back into a time when life here was tough and often lonely. Today, Bruny Island is a peaceful getaway with wildlife tours, beautiful beaches, and delicious local food like cheese and oysters. But for those who know its past, it is also a place where history and legend meet. The combination of Aboriginal heritage, tragic shipwrecks, and the memories of early settlers has left behind an atmosphere that can feel haunting, especially at night when the island becomes silent except for the sound of the waves. Bruny Island's beauty hides a history of loss, struggle, and mystery. Whether it is the spirit of Truganini, the ghosts of shipwrecked sailors, or the whispers of long-gone settlers, the island carries stories that still seem to drift on the sea breeze, making it one of Tasmania's most haunting places. 9. Lord Howe Island. Lord Howe Island is a small and beautiful island located in the Tasman Sea, about 600 kilometers east of the Australian mainland. It is known for its crystal-clear waters, white sandy beaches, green mountains, and rare wildlife. Today, it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and a peaceful holiday destination, but behind its natural beauty, there are stories of mystery and tragedy that have given it a quiet, haunting reputation. The island was first discovered by Europeans in 1788 when a British supply ship, the Supply, stopped there. Before that, there were no records of permanent human settlement, although some historians believe Polynesian voyagers may have visited the island long ago. Over the years, whalers, sailors, and settlers began to arrive, and small farming communities were established. Life was often difficult, as the island is remote and storms can cut it off from the outside world for days or weeks. Lord Howe Island has a history of shipwrecks, with its surrounding reefs claiming several vessels. One of the most famous was the Macombo, which ran aground in 1918. While no lives were lost, the accident introduced black rats to the island, causing great damage to native wildlife. Other shipwrecks, however, were not so fortunate. Some old sailors' graves can still be found on the island, and visitors have reported hearing strange noises at night, as if voices from the sea are calling out. There are also local stories about ghostly sightings along the beaches and near the old settlement areas. Some people believe these are the spirits of shipwrecked sailors or early settlers who suffered hardship and loss. On foggy nights, locals have described seeing shadowy figures walking along the shore or disappearing into the dense palm forests. These tales have been passed down for generations and add a mysterious charm to the island's history. The isolation of Lord Howe Island has also created a sense of timelessness. Many of the old houses, wharves, and paths from the early settlement days still exist, and walking through them can feel like stepping back into the 19th century. The island's small cemetery is another place where visitors sometimes feel a strange presence, especially in the older sections where the graves belong to sailors, fishermen, and settlers who died far from home. Despite these haunting stories, Lord Howe Island is a place of incredible beauty. It is home to rare birds, coral reefs, and Mount Gower, a mountain covered in ancient rainforest. Visitors often come for hiking, snorkeling, and birdwatching, but some also come to experience the eerie atmosphere and hear the old ghost tales told by locals. Lord Howe Island's charm lies in its mix of paradise-like scenery and its history of isolation, shipwrecks, and loss. For those who listen closely, the island seems to whisper its past. A reminder that even the most beautiful places can carry shadows from long ago. 10 Garden Island, New South Wales. Garden Island is a small island in Sydney Harbour, New South Wales. Today, it is used mainly as a naval base by the Royal Australian Navy, but its history goes back to the very first years of European settlement in Australia. The island got its name in 1788 when the first fleet arrived, and the British started growing vegetables and herbs there to feed the colony. For a time, it served as a garden to supply fresh food, but over the years, its role changed dramatically. Because of its strategic location in the harbour, Garden Island became an important naval and military site. In the 19th century, it was used as a base for ships, and later, during World War II, it played a major role in protecting Sydney. Large tunnels and fortifications were built, and some of these wartime structures still remain. During this period, a Japanese midget submarine attacked Sydney Harbour in 1942, and one of the spots damaged in the attack was near Garden Island. Some people believe this tragic event left behind restless spirits. Over the years, there have been many ghost stories connected to Garden Island. Sailors and workers have reported seeing shadowy figures, hearing footsteps in empty corridors, and feeling sudden cold spots. Some believe the spirits belong to sailors who died in accidents or battles and never left. Others think the ghostly activity comes from the island's long history, which includes not only wartime deaths but also earlier tragedies involving shipwrecks and disease in the colony's early years. One of the most famous ghost tales is about a man in a naval uniform who is said to appear late at night near the old tunnels and workshops. People have described seeing him standing silently before disappearing into thin air. There are also stories about unexplained banging noises, tools being moved on their own, and voices echoing in the underground spaces when no one else is around. Today, Garden Island is still an active naval base, but part of it is open to the public. Visitors can explore the Naval Heritage Center, which has displays of the island's history, and walk to the lookout points that give beautiful views of Sydney Harbour. While most people come for the military history and scenery, some are curious to experience the eerie feeling that many have reported. The island's mix of natural beauty, colonial history, and military past makes it a unique place. It is a reminder that even in the heart of a busy modern city, there are locations that carry deep stories from the past, stories of survival, conflict, and mystery. For those who believe in ghosts, Garden Island offers a chance to stand in a place where history might still be alive in ways we cannot see.